الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So we're on page 42, part 7, focus. The seventh characteristic of a student of knowledge. So he said you have to develop the ability to focus on one thing at a time. If your mind is all over the place, you will never be successful in anything. And this also goes back to having a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to be able to focus. Because anybody comes and talks to you about something new, you're going to become interested in it, and you're going to run off and try to start doing that thing. Then another person comes and talks to you about something other science, you're going to run off in that direction. Another person comes, and next thing you know, you're just running in every direction with no focus, no plan. So, the focus, first off, you have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, what are you going to focus on? Nothing. So you go, you get advice, you make up a plan, and then once you have that plan, you focus on the first thing. First thing, that's what you focus on, and then you get working on that and nothing else. If you are memorizing the Quran, that is all you are doing at that time. Do not look at your phone. And I don't mean at that time in your life. I mean at that time of you memorizing the Quran. So if you sit there and say, okay, I'm going to pray Fajr, and then I'm going to sit in the masjid for an hour, hour and a half, and memorize the Quran. For that time that you're in the masjid memorizing the Quran, that's all you're doing. You're not looking at your phone. You're not stopping to chit-chat. You're not picking your nose. You're not thinking about what you're going to eat for breakfast. All you're doing is focusing on that page that you have to memorize. He said, all right, so after that, he said, if you're memorizing the Quran, that is all you're doing at that time. Do not look at your phone. Do not stop to take a long coffee break. Do not stop to chat with people. You can do all that when you are finished. While you are working on a task, that is all you should be doing. Because that's what separates the winners from the losers. The people, the muflihun, the people of success, are the people that have that ability to focus on that thing and get the work done first. The fun comes later. Fun, and then not the fun, but you know what I'm saying, that the relaxation or the enjoyment comes after the job is done. But you get other, the losers and the fools and the people that don't take anything seriously. They want to work a little bit, rest a little bit, work a little bit, rest a little bit. It doesn't work like that. Just get the job done. Go there, get the job done, and then relax. If you want to sit down and eat or drink some coffee and chat with people, then do it after you get that task finished. But don't sit there and just cut the task up into little mini breaks throughout the time. Just get it done. If you said a number of times you have to read a page after Fajr. So let's say that you want to read the page 50 times after Fajr. So how long is that going to take you?
You want to read one page 50 times. That's probably going to be 35 minutes?
No, more than that.
That's
the equivalent of 2.5 juz of the Quran.
Probably take an hour and a half.
It depends on the page, but let's just less than an hour and a half. Let's say an hour and 15 minutes. All right. So about an hour and 15 minutes, hour 20 minutes, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on what the page is. All right. And obviously you're gonna have to drink water. 50 times. Well, maybe you just read it straight through. Who knows? All right. So let's just say, so if you said a number of times you have to read a page after Fajr, so let's say it's 50 times. 50 times you read that page. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. You just go through and just knock that thing out. And if you start to get tired and bored while you're sitting down, stand up and walk around. And the best thing to do is to sit down maybe for the first 20 times and read the page from the book, from the Mus'haf, to make sure that you're not making any mistakes. Stand up, walk around for 20 more times, and read it, try to read it from your memory. And then for the last 10 times, read it one time looking at the book, one time from your memory, one time looking at the book, one time from your memory. And this way that you can make sure that you got it right. And then the rest of the day, you just want to read it from your memory. All right. If you said a number of times you have to read a page after Fajr, you do not do any other action until you finish the number of times you have to read. For example, you might write in your plan that you have to read the page you are memorizing 50 times every day after Fajr. You do not look at your phone, get coffee or tea, or talk to another person until you finish those 50 times. So you make the coffee or the tea as a reward for you finishing those 50 times. You don't reward yourself for doing 1/3 of an action. You reward yourself for finishing it. All right, when you're finished, you can take a break for a half hour to drink some coffee or get something to eat, and then you move on to the next item on your list. Aside from having focus on the action that you are doing at the time, you must also focus on the science that you are studying at the time. That means when you're studying a science, like for example, if you're studying Nahu, or you're studying Usul al-Fiqh, or you're studying Mustalah Hadith, that's all you're studying at the time. You're not going to take a class in Mustalah Hadith and a class in Nahu, or a class in Nahu and a class in Usul al-Fiqh. It doesn't even make sense. Can't focus on that many things, especially when the science is new to you. It requires a large portion of your focus. I don't care how smart you are. If you want that science to be fixated in your mind, you need to give all your attention to it at that time. And you can't do that when you're also when you're thinking about the other class that you have to take. And that's why you see the people that study in these universities and schools. You see how they don't come out of these universities well grounded. Look at the people in Yemen, look at the people in Mauritania and how they study, because they focus on that science. Whatever they're studying, that's all they're focusing on. And they take that one science at a time. So they go, they're going to study Nahu. Okay, I got Nahu down. Now I'm going to go on to Usul al-Fiqh. Okay, I got Usul al-Fiqh now. Now I'm going to go to Mustalah Hadith. Okay, now I got Mustalah Hadith down. Now I'm going to go to Fiqh. So these and I didn't mention Tawheed and Aqidah because that should already have been studied from the very beginning. And that's the way you do things. But if you go and you study in the university, you're going to have a class in Nahu, a class in Usul al-Fiqh, a class in Tawheed, a class in... How are you going to keep all that information in your head? How? So it's just like whatever stays, stays, whatever goes, goes. That's not how you do a science, because if you're studying one science, you should be memorizing in that science, reading in that science, studying in that science. Every discussion that you have should be about that science. That way it helps that information to stick in your head, and that's why it's better to have a person that you study with. All right, so it says, aside from having focus on the action you're doing at the time, you must also focus on the science that you are studying at the time. Do not attempt to take on different sciences all at once. Focus on one science at a time. If you're studying the Arabic language, that is all you should focus on. If you're studying Usul al-Fiqh, that is all you should focus on. What I mean by focus is that you are memorizing, reading, studying, etc., in that subject. You cannot be reading a book in fiqh, studying a book in aqidah, and memorizing a book in nahu. Stupid, right? Your mind does not work like that. Focus on one subject at a time until you achieve some type of mastery of that subject, then move on to the next subject. And like I talked about before, it's not necessary that you completely study from the beginning all the way to the end. No, you study until you get a foundational knowledge in the science. You go on to the next science. So you get a foundational knowledge in that science. You go on to the next science. Foundational knowledge. And then you come back around and then you start taking it up to the next level, to a higher level. So now you want to focus on mastering each science one by one. Because to master a science in any science, it's going to take at least 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years to really, 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 really master that science. So you don't want to spend 3 to 5 years on just one science in the beginning. Because that's not, you're not going to benefit from the majority of the lessons if you do that. So you go and you get the foundational knowledge first. All the basic knowledge. And then you come back and then you start focusing on knocking out the bigger books in each of those sciences. And in that way, khalas, by the time that you're done, alhamdulillah, you're well grounded. But even before you're done, going through all the foundational knowledge, you can sit down and you can understand the ulama better, you can understand the durus of the shaykh better, because he's going to be using, subject matter from all these different sciences. If you're only well grounded in one science, then you got to sit around and wait for the shaykh to talk about that one science. And you don't benefit from the rest. All right, so that's that. Any questions about focus? All right, number 8, resilience. What does resilience mean?
Being able to go when you get knocked back on your feet, on your back.
You get knocked out or knocked down, and to get back on your feet and keep it moving and to keep progressing. No matter what happens. Like you don't allow the failure to stop you. The failure is on. You stand up, you learn from the failure, and you move on. You learn from it and you move on. If you don't learn from your failures, you might as well quit in the beginning then. If you don't plan on learning, number one, plan to fail, because you're going to fail a lot. And number two, make sure that you get the lesson from it. Learn why you failed, how you failed, and change it. All right, so resilience is the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. If you do not have this quality, you will never do anything great. This quality is of the utmost importance to a student of knowledge. When you go out to seek knowledge, you're going to be tested by Allah in ways that you've never experienced before. You will want to quit and give up all the time, but you have to keep pushing through the difficulties. With every difficulty that befalls you, there will be a time of ease, like Allah said, "Inna ma'al usri yusra." Surely with hardship comes with what? Ease. But then you got to keep in mind that after that ease comes what? Another hardship. So just as that ease comes, you're not going to get complacent and just sit there and say, oh, good, now let me relax in this ease, in this time of ease. No, you know that another hardship's coming, so you might as well start to prepare for it. Allah also promised you that you will be tested, and explain the wisdom behind the test in the following ayahs in the Quran. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So do the people think that they're going to, do the people think that they're going to be left alone after they say that they believe, and that they're going to be left alone and they're not going to be tested? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Verily we've tested all of those that came before them. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know those who are truthful. وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So from those who are liars. And that means the people who say one thing, the truthful people, their actions and their statements match. And what goes on in their heart matches. The liars, their heart is on one thing, their tongue is saying another thing, and their actions are doing something different. So he said, if you say that you want knowledge of this religion, you will be tested to see how much you really want it. Are you willing to endure all the pain and suffering of sickness and hunger for knowledge? Are you willing to endure poverty and loss of status in society for knowledge? Are you willing to sacrifice your comfort and good life for knowledge? Are you ready to be uncomfortable day in and day out while your friends are having what's perceived to be a good time? Be real with yourself. Because, and this is the reality. This is the reality, especially now with the internet. See, us, when we were studying, alhamdulillah, we were cut off from the people. We were completely cut off. I don't know what's going on with these people. But now you can sit there and open up Instagram and see your friends taking selfies at the restaurant eating pizza while you're eating beans and rice every single day. And you're living in a hot environment with no electricity or very little electricity, no air conditioning, suffering day in and day out for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, but you're going to see this, you see the people having fun and, enjoying themselves, and that's the whole thing, You have to be able to look at those images and look at those people and say, man, you guys are masakin. You're masakin. You're wasting your lives away, thinking that life is about getting pizza. Life is about going to these places and seeing things that, so what, once you've seen it, it doesn't really matter anymore. And so you only get excited like, wow, we finally get to see this place. And then it's like, okay, then after a week, you're like, it's just normal. It's nothing, So, but this is what people waste their lives for, and then they keep on going on to the next big thing. What are we going to see next? What are we going to eat next? What are we going to do next? And then the next thing you know, they keep wasting their lives away. So you can't get caught up in that. You got to remember what you're doing and why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. That's the most important thing, is to remember who you're doing it for. If you're doing it for Allah, you think these people are doing what they're doing for Allah? Of course not. Running around eating pizza and having fun, laughing and joking and all that, and saying, oh, we're doing this for Allah. It'd be foolish if they said that. All right, so it said, be real with yourself. Because if you are not real with yourself, you will find out the truth about yourself when you start getting hammered with those tribulations. And wallahi, If there's one thing that I could say is probably one of the truest things that I said for myself. I'm not talking about the truest thing in this book, because the truest thing in this book is the Quran and the Sunnah that's in this book. What I'm talking about from my words, if I could say this is probably one of the truest things in this book, this is probably, if you were to ask me, like, name the 5 truest statements that I made in this book, this would be probably be number 1. And this is the reality. If you sit there and lie to yourself and try to lie to yourself that you're this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do, boy, when those tribulations start hammering you, and they will, you'll go through the nice little honeymoon phase. Then you'll probably get sick. Then you'll probably start having family problems. Then you start having other things start popping up left and right. Then you start having family trying to get you to go back and leave, and you're going to have so many different issues. It's not even, and then, and the thing about it is you got to look at yourself and how you're dealing with those issues. And you just keep going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making dua, but you also got to keep learning from those, how you're dealing with those issues. Because my issues throughout studying was always money. Everything, I can handle the sickness. I can handle no electricity, no running water. I can handle everything, even, but I could, the one thing that I cannot handle is being broke. You understand? So, and it's just like, that was the biggest problem for me, and I went through it the whole entire time that I was in Damascus, except for maybe towards the very end when a brother that was in the Emirates sent me money. Then I started to kind of like relax a little bit, but that money was for marriage. It wasn't for me just to go and enjoy myself. But, but the whole time that I was in Damascus, it's just money was the major issue. I got like maybe, on a good year, $250 a year. That's what I lived off of. That's a good year. 200, maybe 300. Now I think a good year was $300. $300 throughout the whole entire year. $300 a year. So imagine the type of pain and suffering that you're going to go through. So, and then on top of that, not being married. On top of that, being away from your family. On top of that, you're getting sick. On top of that, I got so skinny that, subhanAllah. It's like, I'd never been that thin in my whole entire life. And with the time that I was in Damascus, I still have my thobe from Damascus. It's the one that I had in Damascus in Jacksonville. I think Sajid's in it right now. And you see how small that thobe is. Even when I look at it, I'm like, I could never fit into that thobe right now. And I'm sitting there like laughing at myself, like, how could I ever have fit in that thobe? That's because you're not eating. So all of these types of things you're just going to go through. And and you got to look at yourself and how you deal with those issues. But that's what I'm saying. My biggest issue, the problem that I had to sit there and watch myself a lot, was just dealing with money. Like, when I got money, I got what I needed with that money and didn't just spend it recklessly until then I don't have any money for the rest of the year, which I did a lot. So I had to keep learning from my mistakes until you start to mature. But you have to pay attention to yourself and you have to watch yourself, because you're going to learn a lot about yourself. Especially when you've been living at home with your family. You've been living with your parents for so long. You don't really know you, because you aren't you. You've always been with your family, or you've been around friends. Now when you get away from all of that, now it's just you. Yeah, you're gonna meet brothers overseas that study with you, but you don't know these people. You know what I'm saying? You just met them. They don't really know you, And then on top of that, they're not going to really know you, because all they're going to know is the student of knowledge the studying you. They're not going to know all the past and all that type of stuff. All those friends, you left them behind. Family, you left them behind. So it's just going to be you. You and you. Now, you're going to sit at home every night thinking about you now and what's wrong with you and how to fix you. And that's what you need to be doing. That's what you need to be doing. And I used to sit back sometimes in Damascus and replay scenarios that I had with people and all the different mistakes that I made. I'm talking about going all the way back to high school. And that's why it's like people sit there and I used to bring up certain situations to people. They'd be like, Yeah, akhi, wow, you remember that? Like, you have a good memory. Yeah, I have a good memory because I sat in a village for years and years and years thinking about that stuff. You know, trying to figure out, like, what did I do wrong with my life? Like, where, like, and then going through every single scenario with different people and how I dealt with the people and how it was wrong and how I could have dealt with it better. And, you know, and then, you know, this is what you have to learn about yourself. You know, this is what you have to learn. You know, so along this time. If people did that when they went to jail and prison, they probably actually come back reformed a little bit. Because he knows himself better. He knows all the mistakes. He sat there and pondered on his mistakes, realized where he went wrong and what he did wrong. Because if you don't know where you went wrong, you can't fix your life, akhi, if you don't know where it went wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because every race and everything in this life, it has a starting point. If you don't have a starting point where you can go back and you can fix something, akhi, you're lost. You're lost. You know, everything has to have a starting point. So you have to figure out where you veered off that path, whether it's in a deen or whether it's just you as a person. Maybe like when you were like me when I was younger, it's very shy and very nice and very respectful. But then as I got older, I got like an idiot. You know, I started becoming like disrespectful and rude. And so what happened? Where, you know, and you sit back and you start thinking about these things. And as you keep going through all those trials and tribulations, that's what you're going to start. If you're not learning about yourself in that situation, you know, khalas, whatever you do for the rest of your life is pretty much going to be useless. Because you're just going to go through the rest of your life not really knowing you and then making just mistakes after mistake after mistake. You know, and the worst thing that you can do is sit through all those types of trials and tribulations and come out still playing like a victim. That's the worst possible scenario. All right, a person might ask, I know I'm weak and I cannot endure those difficulties. So what should I do? The answer is easy. If Allah did not give us the strength to endure those trials and tribulations, we will never be able to endure them. And that's the truth. You think that there was something special about any of us that went out and studied and went through what we had to go through? You think like, oh, we sat there and lived like that our entire lives? You know, but we knew what we were doing it for. And that made it easy. And we knew what we left behind, the garbage and the pain and the suffering. This is all you know, all we experience in America is that. Pain. You know, pain through poverty, pain through loss, pain through, you know, all the just foolishness that we had to go through growing up. You know, so it's like we didn't leave anything behind. So there's nothing, you know, and you know, that's why you see like a lot of people, they like to keep a cushion behind them, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, at least I got something to fall back on. But we knew that that cushion wasn't there. And if we fell back into America, we're falling back on hard concrete and probably going to bust our head. So we're ready to endure everything that we have to endure overseas to not have to come back to this place and have to go through what we had to go through before. So, you know, that's the reality. You know, nobody has that type of none of us grew up with that type of lifestyle. I've seen brothers that grew up in a very comfortable lifestyle, and you know, brothers from Germany, brothers from France, brothers that had good lives, and they went over there and they were patient. And then you see these other brothers, all from the ghetto, one from the ghetto. He can't last 10 days in the match. 10 days, and he was already back in Sana'a. You know, the whole time he's talking about, oh, I can do this. You know, I grew up poor. I grew up. None of that matters. None of that matters. You know, none of that matters. Because wallahi, you know, the situation that you're going to, you know, when you go to these types of countries, when you're way out in the village with no electricity, no running water, in a mud house, and you're talking about that you grew up in the projects with what? With running water, with electricity, with air conditioning, with heater. None of that stuff exists, akhi. And wallahi, you know, even in the masjid during the summertime, man, it used to be so hot in that masjid because Yemenis don't like to open windows. They hate to open windows. So all the windows in the masjid will be shut. All the fans will be turned off because the old village Yemenis think that turning on the fan makes you sick. So, and in the summertime, it's 100 plus degrees outside. And the masjid is made out of blocks. It's made out of, blocks, cement blocks. Now, what is it? It's an oven. I used to go down and just the sweat would just be dripping off my head onto the floor, from the heat. And then we're sitting in the class for like an hour. We're sitting in the class after Asr for 30 minutes. And we're sitting in the class after Dhuhr for like 20, 30 minutes. And we're hungry, and we're thirsty, and we're, and we go through this every single day. It doesn't matter what you like, trust me, ain't no life in the projects prepared you for that. No life that any of us lived in America prepares us for that. Because regardless, life in America is, even the worst, even probably the homeless, you can go to a homeless shelter and still get better food and better bedding and better, subhanAllah. We had to sleep on the floor, scorpions and spiders and this little black ant that's about this big that will bite you, akhi, and it will bite you and you will feel so much pain. You think like, how could this much pain come from such a small creature from Allah? Little black ant, but that thing bites you. The first time it bit me, I thought it was a scorpion. I thought I jumped up out of bed. I was going to sleep and that thing bit me and I felt like a sting that I never felt in my life. And I jumped up, I was like, that's a scorpion. It's got to be a scorpion. Turned on the gas lamp, because we had these little gas lamps, and I pulled the lamp next to the bed and I just saw the little black ant just crawling on my blanket. I'm like, you did this to me. Nothing you could prepare for.
What should I get ready when if I go?
There's nothing you can do to get ready. Make dua.
What should I expect? What should I expect?
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's it.
What things in Pacific?
Specific,
I mean.
I don't know. Like you going to have the remote. It's going to be hot, man. It's going to be super, super, super hot, super humid. You're not going to, I don't know how the electricity is there because I've never lived in Hadar remote. So, you'll find out, inshallah. You'll find out. I can't tell you. Alright, so a person might ask, I know I'm weak and I cannot endure those difficulties, so what should I do? The answer is easy. If Allah did not give us the strength to endure those trials and tribulations, we will never be able to endure them. You have to constantly seek assistance with Allah. The reason people fail is because they think they are strong and they think they can do it on their own. The truth is that we cannot do anything on our own. We have to seek Allah's assistance in all our endeavors. I have seen little nerdy guys become lions, and I have seen big, strong guys become, that should be become, not became. And I have seen big, strong guys become kitty cats while in Yemen. If Allah assists you, there is nothing that you cannot endure. There's nothing that you cannot overcome. Constantly seek Allah's assistance in everything you do. So, that's it. That's your answer to your question. That's the only way that you're going to be successful. Trust me, if Allah does not give you that strength, well, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. وإلى هنا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.